Everybody. So make sure that before you watch this video that you've attempted plagiarism self-test and you've gone through the quiz questions and you really thought about what the correct answers might be. So in this video what I'm going to do is take you through the questions and we have a little discussion about what the correct answers are and why they are correct. So in question one, as you can see, you are asked about an idea which you came across in an article which you used in your paper. By paper, what they really mean is an assignment, a piece of work which you wrote. And you don't bother to cite. Now, cite simply means that you are saying where this information came from. So you don't bother to cite the source of the idea because you've expressed it in your own words. So you've actually read something, you thought about it, you wrote it down in your own way, using sort of slightly different grammar, slightly different way of expressing this idea, but you didn't say where that information came from. Is that plagiarism? And a lot of people get a bit confused by it because they say, well, it is my own words, so what's wrong with that? But actually it is plagiarism, right? So the correct answer is yes. So what you need to do is, as you are expressing information in your own words, you also need to say where it originally came from. You must have read it in a book, you must have looked at certain websites maybe. So all of these books and websites need to be mentioned in your citations, in your reference list. How to cite and how to write information in your reference list, this is something we're going to discuss separately. So this is not this is not going to be covered in this particular video. So in question 2, you are asked about a particular scenario. So you copy a paragraph directly from an article which you found. You cite the source, but you don't put quotation mark. Is this plagiarism? And the answer, again, yes, it is. So the difference between question 1 and question 2 is, in question 1, you read something and then you expressed that idea in your own words. You still cited, but you don't need quotation marks. Whereas in question 2, the scenario you're given is where you essentially copying and pasting maybe part of a sentence or maybe a whole sentence into your own assignment, and in that particular case you need quotation marks. So if it's a part of a sentence or a sentence which you haven't changed at all, then you need to use quotation marks. For biology specifically, I would discourage you from using direct quotations because, if you're using a lot of them, it makes it very difficult for me to understand whether you grasp the concepts or whether you're just hiding behind direct quotes. Because all direct quotes tell me is that you found information which is relevant, but it doesn't really tell me if you genuinely understood what this means. Okay, so try, where possible, to avoid direct quotations. Write everything in your own words, in your own way. So anyway, moving on to question 3. You need an image for your essay, and you will be using a lot of images in biology because biology is all about sort of showing how things work, showing structures. So I encourage you to use a lot of images. So you find one online and you don't cite the source because images on the web aren't protected by copyright. Is this plagiarism? And the answer is, again, yes, it is. So all the images which you use need to be referenced in your reference list. Question 4, this is, I hope, is a fairly straightforward one. If you pay a tutor and he or she rewrites your original paper and you hand in that assignment, is this plagiarism? And the answer is yes, obviously. It needs to be written by you rather than somebody else. So it's a night before your paper is due and you haven't done any work, so you buy paper from online essay mill. Is this plagiarism? And the answer is, of course, yes, it is, because again, it was not written by you, and all your work needs to be 100% your own. Okay, so therefore, yes, it is plagiarism. Now, question 6. This is something which does happen sometimes, so be careful. Your friend did a course last year, and she gives you her paper. You change wording here and there, and then insert a few of your own ideas. Is this plagiarism? And the answer is, as before, yes, it is, because to a large degree, this paper or this assignment is not your own, but somebody else's. We have a tool called Turnitin, which is actually checking the amount of similarity of your assignment to web sources, books, and also to assignments which were submitted in previous years. So if you have a friend who did a course last year, or you have a friend maybe in your group and you decide to kind of exchange bits and pieces of your assignments, maybe somebody's asking you, well, just show me what you've done so I can have a look. And I don't mind you showing each other how, what you've written for that particular question. But what I would discourage you from doing is sharing electronic copies of each other's work, because you never know. It might be your best friend, but they might be really stuck, or they might be really sort of think, oh my God, it's deadline tomorrow, and try to pass sections of your answer as their own, and it's not going to be a good idea at all, because all of this is going to be highlighted by Turnitin, and we can actually track whose paper you're copying and pasting from. So please do not do that. Help each other, but do not give each other your work, particularly electronically, because the temptation is there then to just kind of copy and paste bits and pieces, and it just becomes a problem for both of you. Okay, moving on to question 7. You copy a short passage from an article you found. You change a couple of words so it's different from the original. This way you don't need quotation mark. You carefully cite the source. Is this plagiarism? And this is the one where a lot of people get it wrong, because they read through the description of the scenario and they say, well, you've changed it and it's different from the original, and you didn't cite because you didn't need to. And you don't need quotation marks. You still needed to cite, sorry, but you didn't need quotation marks because it's not exactly the same as the original. So is this plagiarism? And the answer is actually yes, it is. Why is that? And this is where majority of the cases of plagiarism on Access course, they fall into this particular category. Now, the key bit of information here is a couple of words, right? So if you just change one word here, one word there, but the essence of the sentence is still the same, the sequence in this explanation flows is still exactly the same as the original, is still not substantially your own work. And this is still going to be highlighted by Turnitin, and it's still going to represent an issue. So the description needs to be, substantially different from the original information. So therefore, that's where you have to be careful, making sure you're reading something, then you're closing everything down so you can't see it directly, and you just write information in your own way, in your own words, how you personally understand it. You can still glance here and there, check that you're spelling terminology right, checking that you're using the keywords correctly in the correct context, but the expression of understanding needs to be your own. So next one, here is another scenario. So what about if you had some other work which you did somewhere else on the course? Can you reuse that work in a later assignment and later paper? Is this going to be plagiarism? Now, this is a bit of a tricky one, because this will depend on the course. So when you get to university, my suggestion is check with them, what is allowed and not allowed in that particular course, in this particular university. For the Access course, if you wrote information in your own words in one assignment, and then you come across a different assignment where similar information is relevant, you are allowed to use it, okay? But to make it clear to us, what would be helpful is put in brackets, taken from my assignment such and such, right? For example, I'll give you an example. Sometimes you're talking about how temperature affects, for example, an organ of systems, and then you could, for example, talk about homeostasis and how temperature is relevant and how it's regulated by homeostasis, which is one of the early assignments you're doing. And by all means, then take a paragraph from that earlier homeostasis assignment, put it in your later assignment, but make sure your kind of explanation still flows well, and it's not doesn't feel like this kind of weird chunk which you just shoved into this assignment without giving it any context or without kind of making links to why it's relevant to this different context, different assignment. So be careful with it, but you certainly can do it. So we do allow it, but as I said, it would be helpful if you just put in brackets taking from my assignment so we know exactly why that paragraph is highlighted by Turnitin. So I hope you found this helpful, and just carry on with the next task in this section of the